Welcome. We are Rihanna and Massa, classical pianists and owners of the Piano Boat.
Oh yes, we are charging the starter battery at the moment, so a bit of a hazardous exit at the moment. Definitely doing something. Well, it's certainly glorious out. Oh, hang on. I need to stop the water that's been running. We've been topping up the water just now with my new water softener installation. Yay! Here's the canal, and we can't quite see our boat from here. But from here you can.
What a nice day.
The front window is covered up with the sort of a foil wrap thing to protect from the sunlight. Many summers ago, I remember coming here on a hire boat and trying to find a mooring spot. It happened to be very near this marina.
Yeah, we just managed to squeeze in. It's usually quite busy along here. That was the first time we tried a wide beam, isn't it? It was 10 foot wide.
It was a wider beam.
Yeah, we hired it for a week, which was fun.
Well, I feel like we've walked enough already, but the marina is still stretching along. It's a quite a big marina from where we started off all the way back where the bridge is. Let's go back and I can resume my flight simulator game. I don't even get a response on this suggestion. Excuse the noise here. The HS2 work is carrying on, and I think this is where the railway crosses the canal. It's an interesting one, this. When we have guests on board for the concert cruises, they come to the stern deck, some of them, afterwards whilst I'm driving, and we have a chat, and I'm always a bit careful about how to respond or what to say, but we do go past. We normally don't come this way, but we do go past some HS2 work, and I expect people would comment on the environment and the damage, but there was one gentleman who actually said, well, it's about time Britain had a high-speed train system, so it's a good thing I didn't start off on a rant about the damage to the environment.
Well, our next question comes from Stephen Devlin, who asks, what relaxing piano music would you recommend for people working from home?
Would you like to answer that?
Okay. So for me, I would probably want something that doesn't draw too much attention to itself, otherwise I'd end up getting distracted from my work. So something like Einaudi is quite good because it's quite repetitive, easy background listening. But I actually find that orchestral music works better. I find it less distracting. So I suppose that doesn't really answer your question, but my suggestion would be orchestral music.
Rihanna likes to take her time. a bit like a pet dog. I haven't walked a dog for a while. But anyway, my answer to the question, the favorite, what was it? Oh yes, the relaxing music, sorry. Relaxing music. I would sort of agree with Rihanna really in that music, or piano music, apart from those designed for the specific purpose, I feel they're not really intended for relaxation as such. There's always an intense musical message, and certainly we can't really relax to piano music, but if you were to get involved and listen to the drama behind the music, not a lot of the music written are actually all that relaxing. And I think the effect of orchestral strings and the colourful music certainly does seem to have that effect, but it's possibly because we're not conductors or composers. If you ask a conductor, maybe they might say, oh no, symphonies are certainly not relaxing, divertimenti maybe. Well, chamber music, even chamber music can be quite intense. So Einaudi, certainly, I think that I'd have to stick with that if you really want. I mean, Chopin nocturnes, maybe, but again, quite emotionally intense. John Field, maybe, the inventor of nocturne. The concept, maybe his music are a little bit cuter in a way, but I don't know again whether that answers the question, but maybe Einaudi and that sort of music is probably the one that we would go for if we were to look for that relaxing piano music to suggest. I don't know what Rihanna's doing, but that's the first question done.
Blackberries?
So that's what it was.
Oh, sour.
Oh dear.
Oh. Here, try one.
Oh, mine's nice.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay. Mmm.
This was one of our proposed routes.
Oh, I keep dropping the blackberries.
I suppose this is supposed to be a leisurely walk as well, but to the Denham Deep Lock, it's quite a distance. And at this rate, I'm not sure if we're actually going to get there. Oh, we're leaving Rihanna behind again. But this is a lovely stretch of the canal as well. If anything, there's not a lot of twists and turns, so it is a bit straight. And that's the reason why we decided to do the other route. Running in this heat.
I'm going to break out the shopping bag on the way out back and collect some blackberries. Here.
Thank you. Okay, should we do the questions?
Yeah. They're so good. The ones in the sunshine are so sweet. David Griffiths asks, how do you minimize the shock of performing on unfamiliar pianos? So this will be one for Massa, I think.
Well, I think I would answer as a traveling pianist rather than the resident pianist on the piano boat. Yes, it's the eternal problem we have because we can't carry the instrument like violinists or flautists or harpists, cellists, double bass even. They all carry their own instruments. We can't. So to an extent, we are trained to try and get the best out of, gosh, what's happened to this tree? The best out of the instrument that we have in front of us, but it is a bit of a shock every time, and that's where the rehearsal comes in useful. But I think ultimately it is really about listening. You really need to expect the sound that you want and listen and adjust as you go. So certainly being in a relaxed state as much as possible is also important, although I appreciate it's not easy when you're under pressure for the performance side of element anyway. But I think to listen for the sound and adjust accordingly and to have the state of relaxation in place so that you've got better control, I think really is the key. But I think do expect a certain element of shock. I don't think we can we can't avoid that entirely.
So Gareth Lewis asks, is there a standard width for piano keys? He says, I have a digital one at home and was surprised how difficult it was to play a public acoustic piano as my fingers don't seem to fall in the right place.
There is, I think, a standard width. I can't offhand remember. I think if you Google it, I'm sure it will come up. And of course it was different. The depth was certainly shorter for the more older, the ancient instruments like the harpsichord and such. But there is a standard, so it should be the same. But it could be more to do with the weight. It's similar to the question that we just had from David in that, of course, when it's a different instrument, it's a bit of a shock anyway. But I feel that possibly the digital pianos, they do tend to be a little bit lighter. I would always sit a little bit lower to compensate for trains. Compensate for that. Oh, I think the train was out of picture actually, what a shame. So if you sit a bit lower, you get a bit more of that weight from the piano. So that's the keys, so that's what I would do. But it could be to do with that. But yes, there is, I think, best to Google it because I can't say that I will be able to quote the figures offhand.
The water is so clear here. Must mean that no boats have been passed recently. Or at least not over this side.
I don't know whether it's clear on the video, but it is quite an incredible stretch this side as well, to be honest. It's actually not bad, but we did decide to mainly feature the other route, which is more windy. And
yeah, it's because it's a very nice walk, but it's very straight.
It is.
When you're on the canal.
But you have a chance of seeing trains pass, which you don't in the other route.
Big deal.
It is. Speak of which, must be the Chiltern Railways here.
Anywho, moving on. So Angela Henderson asks, what are your favourite memories from 2021? And I think there was a second part to that question. Oh, and your first year in business. Well, I mean, it was such a whirlwind. It was over before we really knew it had started. But I would say every cruise was great, and we really enjoyed, meeting people, bringing people on board, and I enjoyed doing the holiday cruises as well because it felt like, because you sort of get to know the two people that were with you for however many nights, and it just felt like we were making friends on every holiday, which was really nice. But one element that I did enjoy, which is kind of a funny one, it's after the cruise, after everybody had gone home and we'd done all the clearing up, there was just, I think I mentioned this in the last video, there was just this sense of calm and quiet, and you just kind of stop for a moment and just breathe. And I really enjoyed those times after the cruise when we felt, yes, this has gone well, and now we can just relax. So that was nice.
Bizarrely, it's the clearing up which I didn't enjoy the clearing it up itself, but the air of that, everything's empty, the guests have left, and the certain air reminds me of when I did the cruise ship contracts, and it's a very similar feeling. Of course, on the cruise ships, crews often are on for like months, 6 months, 9 months, even a year. So there's a very different atmosphere when there's a huge, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a huge something foot. I think there's a word when everyone is getting excited about leaving. I can't remember the term now, but for me, I would only go on for about 2 weeks at most, because there's as many programs, different concert programs that I would prepare. So each leg we go on, and it's shared by other pianists as well for other legs. So I go on for about 2 weeks at most, but even 2 weeks is quite long, and you do about 5 to 6 concerts, and it is exhausting, but it's rewarding. And at the end of it, you have that sense of achievement, you have the relief, and you see a lot of the cabins are open because it's a big turnaround, and they're all clearing up. So, and you get to peek in the cabins, and you see the ones with the balconies, and I climb up from the crew area on the bottom of the ship, and just the feeling is not that dissimilar when we actually had the disembarkation for our own cruises. So that bizarrely is still my favorite memory, really.
It sounds like we didn't like having people on board, but
No.
that was actually not the case.
No.
We really enjoyed it. It was, I think, the sensation when people were on board was that you just didn't have time to think.
That's it.
But in sort of retrospectively, we enjoyed the cruises as well. It was just the first time we had an opportunity to think was after everyone had left.
Yes, and I certainly wouldn't put a favourite cruise, whether it's concerts or the holiday cruises. I think we have different guests every time, and well, we had some repeat guests, which was delightful as well. But certainly, both of them, we can't put a finger on which is the favourite or anything like that. They're all quite an experience for us as well. Is that a bit of a cliche?
A little bit, but it's true.
But it's true.
All right, boat related. We're on to boat related now.
We are on to boat related, and it's just a little bit too warm, so we are
Stopped in the shade.
yes, took
Shade
refuge
seekers.
in the shade.
So, Judalyn Duba asks, how many people can you have on board for a performance? That is a very straightforward answer, and the answer is 10. We did have 12 when we did our launch event in London, but that was because we didn't have any tables. So for the afternoon tea and the brunch cruises that we were doing last year, we were having 10 people, which was 10 chairs and 5 tables. So that's really the most we can fit. But it's quite a nice number. It's sort of enough that it doesn't feel empty, but not too crowded. And also it's definitely enough for me doing the catering.
By law, we're only allowed 12 anyway, but I think, as Rihanna said, 10 is a comfortable number for the guests. There's a formula that works out how much space would be comfortable for each guest, but with the tables, I think that's about the right number. And indeed, it's enough to cater for. Oh, I can't see the trains because we are under the bridge.
It's gone.
Can you walk a bit slower?
Fiona Morgenhauser wonders how we are managing in the current weather.
I think
It's a sort of, it's a great contrast to when that comment was left, I think.
that was in January, so it could have been the storm.
That was
or the sudden chill.
crazy cold weather that we had in the winter. Now we have heat wave. So I guess the answer remains the same. We are well equipped with insulation and central heating and air conditioning, and as long as we're inside the boat, we're okay. From Jane Cox, what is the hardest part of being a boater?
Well, we're actually in a marina, so certain problems that you see on other YouTube vloggers, like needing to top up water and having to move as continuous cruises, they don't really apply to us. But I suppose it's not specifically boating related, but things do go wrong, unfortunately. So I think that still is it's quite hard to deal with. And I suppose the issue is that it's a bit of a monopoly. I think there's only one manufacturer who does marine toilet installation or the sails. So I do think the repairs, or whether it's the boiler, the diesel boiler, the repairs and the parts do tend to cost a little bit more, if not.
And they take a long time, very often.
And they do take a long time for the repairs to happen. So I think there are some of the elements that is specific to boating.
Yeah, and other than that, I don't know, I guess it does make you more aware of, even though we're in a marina, we still have to top up water and things like that. It sort of makes you more aware of how many days you can go without a shower in this one's case. But otherwise, we're quite fortunate to have most of the home comforts that we would have liked. And our last question comes from Carl Samuel Kaiser. I'm very sorry if I've pronounced your name wrong, but you asked, who built your boat? Are you using Victron? And what problems have you encountered? So I shall answer the first part, and then I will hand over to Massa, who knows a whole lot more than I do about the rest.
Not really, but there we go.
So it was built by TriStar Boats, which is primarily run by Michelle and Jeremy Greenwood. They are a fabulous duo, and they have a small team that works on bespoke projects and just does a sort of small number of boats at any one time, and when ours was in the workshop, it took up most of the space that they had anyway. So it worked out really well because Michelle does sort of interior design and that sort of thing as well, so she really helped us bring the whole thing together in terms of the feel, the concert hall feel, the sort of intimate space that we wanted, and we were really pleased with it. So TriStar boats.
Absolutely. And the second part, Victron, we do use Victron inverter indeed, 10 kVA I think, so it's quite big, but with the aircon and possibly the washing machine, dishwasher running, it can reach quite a bit, so it's useful to have the big capacity. Or if we have guests who want to use the hairdryer, we can still have various devices running at the same time, or a very power hungry gaming system. Well, it's not really, but anyway, problems. What was the other question?
What problems have we encountered?
Probably similar to what's the hardest part of being a boater maybe, but we have had problems. The boiler stopped working. That was
Twice.
an issue in the depths of winter, although we do have, it was okay mostly because we had a radiator, electric radiator, but obviously not ideal. The toilet waste tank gauge breaking, that was not pleasant. Boaters, we should point out, do like to talk about toilets. It's mandatory, but perhaps we won't go into details here, but that
was the worst problem we've encountered.
That was rather unfortunate, but now we do have a secondary cage, just to make sure that we don't have the repeat of the problem. The water pump, I think we did feature earlier in our video, that went a bit funny as well. But we should also point out most of these things are manufacturer problems really, so it's not
like the water pump seemed to have been faulty,
so it's not really the fault of the builders as such, I should just point out. So that, I think they're the main problems as such, but otherwise, all in all, I think the snagging
life
went
is
quite
dandy well. No, yes, is it?
That'll do.
So that brings us to the end of our questions. So thank you very much indeed for submitting those, and once again we're sorry it's taken us so long to answer them. Oh, it's a bit dark. Oh well, you know what we look like. So there we go. We might do a reprise of this sometime in the future, but for now, thank you very much. Thank you for listening to us ramble on, and enjoy the heat.
They're closed.
Well, we're nearly back. I think we're done. The sun is facing the other way. I think we're ready for that, well, late lunch, dinner, what you call it. I'm ready to retire. All packed. You've got lots of blackberries to sort out. Okay, let's go.